The Forest of ZIL by Kris Neville. Originally published in the December 1967 issue of Amazing Stories magazine, which reprinted it in their 1986 anthology called Visions of Other Worlds. Republished in more anthologies through the years, including The Year's Best Science Fiction, number 1 in 1968, Best SF 1967 in 1968, 2 in Dutch language, 1 in 1974 and another in 1977, and 1 in French in 1984. It was also included in a collection of the author's stories called The Science Fiction of Kris Neville in 1984. Read by Darrell T. Smith II for my channel, Quasar Spectra. The Forest of ZIL. 1. ZIL was the first habitable planet found by the Earthmen as they swept outward through space from Sol in ever-widening circles, seeking adventure. ZIL was nothing but a forest, and when the scout ship set down after a journey of 3 Earth weeks through at least 100 light-years of conventional space-time, it set down on the treetops rather than the surface. It was as though the whole planet were nothing but one great uniform growth, a green ocean of leaves covering everything. The situation defied a botanist of the expedition, McClare, for in the oxygen richness of the air one would not expect the plants to survive. McClare rode with the first scout ship, and it was his privilege to first sample the breathability of the atmosphere. Prior analysis proved accurate. "It's good air," he reported, "and I feel fine." Word went immediately to the mothership in orbit. Success at last. "There's a breeze, too," said McClare. "The leaves are all moving, and they make the strangest sound, a sort of ZIL, ZIL, ZIL. Like that, a whispering." 2. An investigation party, headed by the botanist, was stationed on the planet. The 4 men chopped away some of the upper branches of what appeared to be several separate trees and built themselves a structure more resembling a raft than a treehouse. They floated there far above the surface of the planet, while the botanist continued his studies of the alien monoecology. The forest was a continuing source of wonder to McClare, but he was most bemused by its static quality, for the trees appeared nowhere within the circle of his limited exploration through the intertwined branches to bear fruit or show other means of reproducing themselves. All were of an identical species. The leaves, broad, green, glossy in the sunlight, as though waxed, were no direct counterpart of the leaves of earth trees, and yet there were more similarities than differences. They contained, for example, material positively identified by chemical analysis on the mothership as chlorophyll. In the atmosphere, storms came and went, and humidity varied while the oxygen content hung at a constant 30%, with nitrogen contributing most of the remainder, no detectable carbon dioxide. It was as though, long ago, the carbon dioxide had been used up, and now the forest was locked immobile in time. McClare could fill several notebooks with anomalies, but the solution of them defied him. By the 3rd day, they had penetrated down to the lower branches. At last, Johnson caught the first glimpse of the surface, and he called back, "Dirt! As far as I can see, nothing but dirt." The 3 other men joined him. The branches terminated some 20 feet from the surface, and they all peered down through the speckled gloom. "Want to drop down?" The last descent was accomplished with a rope, and when Johnson found solid footing and the rope went slack, he called up, "Seems safe enough. Come on down." McClare followed, with Carlson behind him. The 4th man, reading, remained on the lower branch as an observer. McClare had expected an endless carpet of dead leaves, but if leaves had fallen, the continuous organic processes had long ago removed them. He bent to the slightly moist earth for a soil sample and then looked up. Far above, the spreading branches gently moving, rustling. ZIL, ZIL, ZIL. And for a moment he was inexplicably overcome with a superstitious fear. In his immediate view, there were literally hundreds of tree trunks of varying dimensions, some apparently far older than others. It was as though, with time, the forest had come progressively to dominate the planet, strangling other life forms, until now only the trees remained, total masters of the environment, and they were frozen and timeless. Time has a different meaning here, thought McClare. He said, "This might be a rich find for archaeologists." He wondered what history might unfold from fossil life hidden in the rich, dark soil. "We're going to have to clear these trees out first," said Johnson. "With the high oxygen, we might do it with selective burning. What do you think?" McClare, wondering what effect the sudden introduction of new carbon dioxide would have as a growth promoter, said, "We're going to have to be pretty damned careful. The whole thing seems so in balance. It might start to collapse if we interfere." Aside from their voices and the zil, zil, zil of the leaves, there were no other sounds. "Let's try that small one over there first," said McClare, pointing to one of the trees a good distance away. "I think we can drop it, part way at least. It's far enough away so it won't be supporting the house." Johnson brought out the laser and studied the tree a moment. "I'll nick it and then cut." A moment later the tree toppled, introducing a new sound, tearing upper branches loose, showering the ground with twigs and leaves. It hung at a 45-degree angle, suspended from supporting branches of its neighbors. "See if you can section it," said McClare. "I want to count the rings." Saying this, he felt again the irrational and superstitious fear, and he was desperately afraid that all the trees were going to prove of the same age, or agelessness. 3. ZIL was the first habitable planet found by the Earthmen. 1,000 balanced terraniums generations ago had left Sol, caught in the rigidity of Einsteinian space and time, and now, at last, one had reached a destination where planetary life might once again be possible. The ship itself was weathered by space, and its lifetime could no longer be predicted by its inhabitants, although there was growing fear among them that no time beyond the present, beyond the stars, remained. It was ZIL, or disintegration in further transit. So much time had elapsed in the crossing of space that even their language had changed, and the original motivations were lost in antiquity. The Earthmen sent down an exploratory team, and the reports of the giant trees and the breathable atmosphere came back. The order went out to investigate the possibility of clearing a site to permit landing all the cargo of the interstellar ship. The captain, this done, turned to his library of ship's logs with a weary sigh. The library extended backward in time beyond the memory of ancestors, and he felt suddenly kinship with long-ago Earth, surviving now merely in myth, and he removed from the shelf the very first of the log books, describing in the cold and formal phrases he knew so well, farewell to the planetary system of Sol. He stood at the culmination of some vast racial memory and dream, which promised the eternal continuity of mankind. The first giant step was taken. All was now assured. Generations from now, when the surface of ZIL had been cleared and mankind had established its mastery of this planet, Other interstellar ships, perhaps of improved design, would be launched against the long eternity of the universe. He stood facing an endless beginning. On the surface, the landing crew felled the first tree. The captain studied the blank pages of the book in his hands, wondering why this empty, yellowing volume had been stored at all. He removed the book that had stood beside it, and it, too, was filled mostly with blank pages, except for a few entries at the very end of it. These entries, too, were gone, and he wondered why. Reaching for the third, early logbook, 2 empty volumes had been so long preserved. 4. On Earth, Ed Long, 16 years old, closed a science fiction book, having just read a story of man's first trip to the moon. The Great Depression had come to trouble affluent America in the year 1929, but Ed was caught already with dreams of the future in his mind, and he went out into the night air to look up at the skies and marvel at the wonders that man would someday, perhaps not in his lifetime, but someday, encounter. At length, his mind overflowing with endless and timeless speculations, he returned to his room and the light there, somewhat hungry after the meager evening meal. Time to study. It could not be avoided further. History was his hardest subject, and there was a test tomorrow. He brought out his schoolbook and wondered for a moment before he settled down to study why it was that the printed pages were so interleaved with blank ones. 5. The monk, by candlelight, laboriously produced an illuminated manuscript, caught in the press of the endless compulsion to reproduce the work in front of him before it vanished entirely. At length, the lateness of the hour took him to his tiny cell and restless sleep, where he lay for a long time haunted by the nightmare that tomorrow no work would remain to be done. It would all, somehow, in the night, get itself copied and then vanish away. 6. In the strange language of the time, Horathrag said, "It would be well to record this transaction beyond the impermanence of memory." He made a mark upon the stone, and then another, being somewhat distressed to note that no sooner had one mark been made than the preceding one faded, so that in the end he gave up entirely this useless endeavor. 7. In a time before Horathrag, there were animals and large reptiles of diverse forms, but in time they one by one went away, and soon there was the earth and the endless ocean, but nothing stirred nor moved within its depths, and time continued, and weathering produced strange effects, with no thing to remark upon them. 8. On the distant planet, the forest moved in the warm sunlight to the motion of the gentle breeze, making sounds. ZIL, 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 and none came to cut its trees. You've been listening to pre-1990s speculative fiction readings with a highlight on science fiction by Darrell T. Smith II. Please consider clicking the donation link in the description box. Thank you so much for your time and your imagination.